What's cracking, everybody? We got a few questions in here before the show. I'll bring the music down a little bit. We're going to leave the music on, though. I like talking over the jams. Shaved my winter beard. I don't know. What do you guys think? Babyface Besbris? Better? Worse? Doesn't matter. I don't actually care. I left it that long because I wanted to have the big, thick, rustic beard for our family trip to the snow. Why is it that this is all... Is it like going back farther? You can see just the tiniest sliver of a home behind it, which I don't... That's not what I wanted. Wonder how I fixed that. Wonder if it doesn't matter. Here's the problem with growing a very long beard and mustache. All the hair was very thick here on the old face-a-roo. When your kids give you colds every 3 weeks and you're sneezing constantly, you don't want a catch. I'm ready for the next cold now. When I sneeze, it'll just blow right out into the open. A mustache catching all that junk. Terrible. I have something I want to try on today's show. We're going to be talking about the old man squad. So at some point, I'm going to just drop this in the screen. It's the list that I posted on Twitter at the beginning of the season. I didn't change it at all from what I had earlier this year. So we'll go through that today. We're going to go through some of the players. You can see the bolded ones on your screen there. Those are the guys that were targeted, basically. Guys that I thought were kind of big leapers. I don't know why Desmond Bain isn't targeted. But look, Shea's on there. I had his totals way off. But at least he was on there. I honest to God, I forgot that I had Shea on the old man squad. So that was kind of cool to boot that up and be like, hey, look at that. We had that dude on there too. There's some misses in there. There's Keldon Johnson highlighted down near the bottom. He's been a miss. I think the reason, and then KD, this injury, it was crushing, man. We had it right on the nose. Had the rank nailed, but now he's not going to get there. I mean, per game he might, but totals he won't. That's now no longer on the page. Anyway, we'll do this in a minute. Hi, everyone. To those of you joining us here on the front end of the live show or watching the replay, take a second. I changed the way that my name is formatted here. I wanted to make sure that people knew, and there's a logo up. Where the hell is it? Way up in that corner of the screen there. It says Sports Ethos. That's the website. But I feel like I want to make sure all of you guys are understanding. Gary, got an itchy eye. That this is just a mere cog in the wheel of the greatness that is Sports Ethos. I'm really excited about what's going on over there. We've got 4 or 5 new team podcasts, either relaunching or launching for the first time lately. Shout out to David Williams, our Grizzlies podcaster, who's also heading up the podcast department, even training people on podcasting and podcast posting just constantly for weeks now. So that's super cool. And it's just so much fun to see Sports Ethos continue to widen with more. These are going to be a couple of football shows. I think we're going to have another baseball show. I personally want to do a baseball show this year. We'll see if there's time. I keep saying there's going to be time, and then I keep not creating the time for it. Anyway, do check out Sports Ethos. The Twitter handle for them is at Sports Ethos or Ethos Fantasy BK. Those both work. This is my Twitter handle, at Dan Besbris. I hope if anybody finds this for the first time, you do come find me over there. Also, take a second here at the front of the show to please like and subscribe. Only 2 of you have liked the video so far. I know this because the third one was me. Ha. The third one was me. So, and look, there's probably 10 of you that have used the chat room already. So I know there are more than 2 of you watching. Please do like and subscribe to our YouTube page. It's Sports Ethos is the name. YouTube.com/Sports Ethos is the name of the YouTube page. And I'll remind everybody of that during the recorded portion of the show. For those uninitiated, I like to try to welcome everybody in. We're going to do a couple of questions here at the front end, and then I'm going to turn my recording software on, and we'll do what I'm referring to as the real show, the portion that goes out on recorded channels as well. For now, I'm going to take the old man squad off the screen. Bye-bye. You're going to get my big ugly mug up in your grill, which is less ugly now that I've shaved. And let's do a couple of questions here to start the show. Would you still long stream if your worst 2 to 3 players are Jalen Duren, Mark Williams, and Klay Thompson? Oh, my God. I'll have to drop one if I'm ever fully healthy. 12-team points league, 3 IR. Current streamers are Keegan Murray and Drew Eubanks. My guess, Ryan, was so the short answer is no. But my guess is that someone else on your team will need to be injured or dropped, and that would create your extra long stream. Andrew D. What's up, Andrew D? Can you grade this trade? I traded Jalen Brunson for Steph in a Dynasty Points League. Standard scoring. I'm currently in second place and looking to have a bye next week. Or I have a bye next week, I guess, so I have a little time to wait. Honestly, I'm petrified for this year getting Steph back in time for the fantasy playoffs. This is a perfectly reasonable trade for Dynasty for the next 2 or 3 seasons because there's just no way that Brunson, even at his best, is going to get to Steph-level fantasy production. So, if this one tanks this year for you, at least you have Steph going into following seasons. I am a bit worried, though, that he's going to be back for 2 or 3 more weeks and then trouble. How concerned are you about both Giannis and KPJ a week and a half until my first playoff matchup? Very. I wouldn't do anything about it now, but you might be in a little bit of a pickle if we get to like Saturday of next weekend, not this coming one, but the following one, and those guys aren't back yet. Obviously, you would drop Kevin Porter Jr. before Giannis if you had to pick between the two. You're not dropping Giannis because more than likely your team is kind of built around him. But pretty worried, actually, especially for the Bucks side, because their playoff position is totally fine. They'll be able to survive a handful of games. When they go 500 without Giannis, they'll be okay. So they're not going to rush him back. Rockets, we've seen, aren't going to rush Kevin Porter back, but also we don't really know what the hell's going on there. Jamal Murray was on fire before going down with injury. Do you think he can maintain a top 30 number for the home stretch? I'm going to say no, but I do think he can be top 50 down the stretch, which is still pretty good. And he's expected to play in their first game out of the break here. So expect a little bit of rust because he didn't play for whatever it was, week and a half before. And then you had the break, 2 to 3 weeks off, whatever. But he'll shake that off in a game or two, and hopefully this thing doesn't crop back up. But I would not expect him to play in back-to-backs, given that we're seeing that there is some soreness. This, I think, was the other knee, actually. But regardless, with guys playing sore, Denver's so good. I mean, that's Nikola Jokic in a nutshell. That Denver's so good that they don't need Jamal every game anyway. So he's going to be more fun in Roto than he is in head-to-head. We'll just leave it at that. Should I pick up Pokuševski rest of season? Drop would be Delon Wright or Matisse Thybulle. 8 cat games cap Roto. No, I would not. He's been part of that Thunder carousel of minutes pretty much for multiple years running now. So no, I don't think that there's a reason to jump too far down that one. Tyler Vickers. Tyler, what's up, buddy? I feel like you and I talked years ago. Love the show and the pod. Maybe I'm losing my mind. Maybe it was a different Vickers, but hi. I think we've chatted before. My playoffs start next week, and I got offered Paolo Banchero and Wendell Carter Jr. for my Mark Jackson, former player, broadcaster, and coach Mark Jackson. I think that's Mark Williams and Cam Johnson. 9-cat head-to-head 12-team. I'm in first punt points. Would ya? No. Punting points. Points is really the only thing you're getting with Paolo Banchero. His percentages are going to kill you. I would far prefer... So here's the thing. I prefer Cam Johnson over Paolo Banchero in 9-cat. And I prefer Mark Williams over Wendell Carter Jr. in 9-cat. So I feel like you're getting the better player on both. Now, if you were punting a percentage like Paolo... Bad at at typically the free throws is the one where he's worse, but it's both that have been kind of rough or turnovers or whatever. Maybe that does change the calculus a little bit on the Banchero side, but there's a reason that he's been outside the top 150 after like a good first 3 weeks of the year, and it's because his efficiency categories are dog do. And then Wendell Carter Jr., Mark Williams, Cam Johnson, all those guys to me should float in between like 60 and 110. So call them all kind of like a three-headed wash because everybody's so close in that range. So you go with the better 9-cat guy, especially if you're punting points. Mitch Robinson was dropped. Is that an IL spot stash? Yeah, he was top 60 before he got hurt. I get it. A lot of that's wrapped up in low turnovers, big field goal percent, and blocks numbers and rebounds. But those are worth something. So unless you're punting big man stats, he's a stash. And I expect him back. I think he's supposed to be back in the next 1 to 2 weeks now. Are there any top 20 big men punting rebounds and blocks worth trading Shea for? So there aren't that many big men that don't rebound or block shots. It's typically like you can find a big man that rebounds or blocks shots, and sometimes you can find one that does both, but you very rarely find a big man who doesn't do either. A couple of examples that come to mind. JJJ doesn't really rebound that much, but blocks a ton. Brook Lopez doesn't rebound, blocks a ton. Domantas Sabonis rebounds a ton, doesn't block shots. So you kind of have to like pick one or the other. The closest thing you would have gotten in seasons past, big men at the top of the board typically are good at both of those things. You can look at like the top 20 and try to find anybody who's center eligible that doesn't do either, and there just sort of isn't one. Miles Turner, slightly better rebounder than the other big men we were talking about a minute ago, Brook Lopez, JJJ, but you're not trading Shea for Brook Lopez anyway. But Miles also blocks a lot. Vooch is interesting, but he's a drop-off. He's in the low 20s, rebounds, but doesn't block that many shots. So you see where I'm getting at here. There really aren't big men that don't do either. Kristaps Porzingis does a little bit of both, but he's not elite in either one of them. He's just like pretty darn good in both. So the short answer is no, given your build. But, I mean, you could easily get almost any big man at the top of the board for Shea outside of probably Jokic and Embiid. But that might not help you. If you're looking for a big man who doesn't do either, you got to go pretty far down the board. And I don't know if you'd want that. Who is this person? DeAndre Ayton doesn't block shots, but he rebounds. Christian Wood is not that great at either, but he's also not a guy I really want. You're not actually trading Shea for these dudes. So, no, not really. Oh, points, rebound. Oh, my bad, dude. Not punt, rebound, blocks. Points, rebounds, blocks. Well, that was a long discussion I did for nothing because I'm an idiot. I mean, it's Anthony Davis. Because that dude's going to want to get off of Anthony Davis. You could get Porzingis for him, but you probably could get Porzingis and someone else. He does a little bit of all three. 20-plus points, 8-plus rebounds, 1.5 blocks. KP is the answer to that question. If you don't want to take the Anthony Davis risk. I'd probably just take the Anthony Davis risk. Say, the hell with it. Go nuts. Hey, Dan, Bob, both Mark Williams and Terry Rozier are playing 2 games first round of our league playoffs. It would break my heart to get rid of them. Should I trade one or both? Yeah, I think I could get on board with trading at least one of them. But only if you get a guy back who has 4 games that week. And frankly, only if you get someone back who has a 2-game advantage over the entirety of your playoffs. Because you don't want to trade somebody, you don't want to trade Rozier for someone who has 4 games the first week, but then Terry has more than them the following 2 weeks or something like that. And you're only you gain 1 game over those 3 weeks? That to me is not worth it unless the guy you're getting back really is like the same type of player. All right. Let's boot up the recording software now. Let's do a show. That's as many questions we're doing at the front end. I'll do more questions at the end, though. So to everybody who's just tuning in here and kind of getting settled in, trying to do some questions at the beginning. I'll do some questions at the end for the live YouTube audience. So stay after the show and keep throwing questions in there. Again, follow me on Twitter at Dan Besbris. Follow sportsethos.com. Like and subscribe. Seriously, dude, how can only 9 of you have clicked the thumbs up button so far? There's 25 of you watching the show here. That makes me sad. It's only 40%, and there are probably more that have come and gone already. Please click like. And again, take a moment. Subscribe to our YouTube page. I really think that it's worth it at this point. I feel like I've made a decent case for it. All right, take a look at the old man squad while I'm booting up recording software. Yeah, it doesn't need to be as big as when we're doing the boxes. I wonder if I can make it longer. Can I make it longer? Nope. It just adds and shrinks how much you can see. I'm learning. Okay. We'll get this bad boy going here. One sec. I know it's not technically a halfway point. I realize that the All-Star break is more like 2/3 of the way through the season. But I thought today might be kind of a fun day to do a little mid-season review of the Dan Besbris Old Man Squad. A squad so old, it comes with its own bottle of Bengay. A squad so old that you can hear it coming by the sound of a bag of Werther's Originals being unwrapped as it slowly shuffles down the hallway. A squad so old that you can hear the telltale shuffle of slippers and tennis balls. That's the bottom of the walker, dragging across the floor. It's the Dan Besbris Old Man Squad, ladies and gentlemen. They're not as old as they used to be. So here's the thing. From a nomenclature standpoint, it's much funnier to call the team the Dan Besbris Old Man Squad. But from an accuracy standpoint, we should probably call the team the Dan Besbris not so shiny. It's the boring squad. These are typically boring basketball players for one reason or another that I believe end up getting underdrafted. And this year, a lot of them did. I mean, that's the beauty part. I mean, the lead on today's show, is not to bury it or anything, is that the Old Man Squad has, by and large, kicked ass this year. Not all the way through. No one's ever going to have 100% winners in their sort of target picks. But the ratio is very high this season. And I think that's probably the reason why most of my teams are in really good shape. A couple are in okay shape, and only one is in duty monster shape. And that's a team that has that I traded one of the Old Man Squad guys for someone who wasn't, and that ended up hurting me. So I probably should have traded one of the other guys on that team. Also potentially from the Old Man Squad, but anyway, we talked about that before. Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Fantasy NBA Today, a Sports Ethos presentation. I am your host, Dan Besbris. Besbris on that last name. First name, Dan. If you want to find me over on Twitter, should be pretty easy to do. I believe, yeah, it's in the description of the show. Regardless of where you're listening, it's in the description of the show. If you happen to be listening on a recorded podcast channel, hello. Come join us next time live on YouTube, where we are indeed rolling right now over at youtube.com/sportsethos. And the reason to do so is, number one, Q&A sessions. I do Q&A sessions before and after most of our YouTube shows. Folks can drop questions in the YouTube chat throughout the show. I get to them afterwards. So when I say goodbye to all of you on the recorded side, I actually keep the YouTube deal running for another 10 to 15 minutes, and we do question and answer. And number two, Visual aids. I'm admittedly still not that great with the technology of it, but I am beginning to use some visual aids on YouTube. And today, for ejemplo, we have a Microsoft Word document. I know, super classy, all class here on Fantasy NBA Today with your pal Dan. They call me Dan, all class Besbris. It's just a typed up Word document. It's where I wrote down the old man squad before the season started. It's where I copy and pasted that onto Twitter before the season started. And now, as I run through the names, I can just highlight them right there on the screen. I know this is hard, and people have indeed complained that all podcasters I've gotten this feedback, and I know others have as well, need to repeat the name of the player that we're talking about more often as we're discussing them, because it's easy to kind of forget who the player is that's being analyzed. Well, the power of the visual aid on YouTube is folks can just look and see what name I'm talking about. So, indeed, come on over. Hang out with us on the live side. Again, it's youtube.com/sportsethos. Let's dive into this thing. This might end up taking a couple of days. I also, between today and tomorrow, because the games are back tomorrow, I know, we've almost made it, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big Thursday as we come back from the All-Star break. It's a 9-gamer. So at some point in the next 1 or 2 shows, I guess it's the next 2 shows, or I should say either today or tomorrow would be a better way to phrase it. Either today or tomorrow, we're going to preview the Thursday card. I want to talk a little bit about how long streaming would work if you were going to be doing it immediately. I'm not going to do that every day here until we get, I think I said March 6th at the very earliest. We'll talk a bit more about long streaming at that point. But I want to kind of do like a demo almost. And then I also want to get through the old man squad. So I may have bit off a bit more than I can chew here, but we're going to try to do it anyway. Let's launch right on in. The first name on the list is, unfortunately, a player that if we talked about them 5 weeks ago was a huge hit. And if we talk about them now, no longer a huge hit. And that is the great Kevin Durant, who got off to a rip-roaring start this year. His health was pretty good for a while. And then Jimmy Butler fell into his knee. And now he's been out for a month and change. And hopefully should be back in the not-too-distant future. I believe he's listed questionable. So we might even get him coming out of the All-Star break, but there's going to be a ramp-up period, whether it's the first game, second game, third game back, something like that. He's probably not going to play in back-to-backs, although I know the Suns do need to make a little bit of a run, and they need to have some time to develop chemistry, so, we'll see. But unfortunately, he's not going to hit his totals rank. There's just no way to get that high when you miss a month and a half of the season. He's number 15 by totals right now, so at least not all is lost. And if indeed he does come back and then play healthy the rest of the year, he can very easily climb back into the first round. A couple of guys in the first round miss 1 or 2 games. That makes it a lot easier for him. Even if they don't, his per game ability allows him to gain on most of the players in front of him. So, like, for instance, the 3 players in front of KD right now are Domantas Sabonis, Kristaps Porzingis, Mikal Bridges on the totals side. He'll pass all 3 of those dudes if he comes back and just is healthy, simply because he's better than those guys on a per-game basis. That'll be an easy one. Then you get to Donovan Mitchell, Luka Doncic, Anthony Edwards. Maybe that's a little bit tougher for him to climb over them, although Luka, now with Kyrie, he had slowed a little bit. Spida had slowed a little bit. Edwards is more of a... he's been really good, but he's more of a plotter. That's why he's where he is. He's played 61 ball games so far this year. A healthy KD from, say, end of this week or next week until the end of the season probably does get him back up near 8 or so on a total side. Which, I had him at 2. I thought he was going to finish behind Jokic this year, and he still possibly could have, but that's not going to happen. Per game, I think we'll end up with that relatively close. I think he's number 3 per game right now, but he ain't going to get to number 2 by totals. And unfortunately, he's also probably not going to get to his ADP, which was closer to 5, as YouTubers can see on their screen. Damian Lillard was the next name on the board, and by and large, that one's been a nice winner. He's actually number 8 by totals. I had him on this board here at number 9. He's been climbing as well. His per game I had listed at 10. He's also, interestingly, number 8 per game on the year. So that one we got right on the nose, and he's been a hit. LeBron James was ADP was 16.1. His per game right now is 19 after a slow start, so I'm going to go ahead and just basically call that a wash. His totals a little bit behind. I think, where's LeBron by totals? He should be relatively close to that because he and Dame have each played in roughly the same number of ball games. Oh, there he is. I don't know why he's down at 31. That's a weird drop-off considering he's only played in one fewer game than Dame. So LeBron, not quite a hit yet. Still time. He's probably not going to get to 12 by totals. He's probably not going to get to 9 on a per-game basis. Not after the really slow start to the year he had. But I see no reason why he can't finish in the teens in both. And if that's the case, then that would be probably really relatively close to his ADP. We'll call that one a slight underperformance to this point. But at the end of the year, you're probably going to look back and say, you know what? LeBron was totally fine. Call that one a neutral is where I think it ends up. KD slightly under, Dame slightly over, LeBron neutral. Kyrie, this one's going to be probably a win at this point. I had him at 7 per game, 13 totals. It depends a little bit on how you look at this. Right now, he's number 9 on a per game basis, and he's back of that by totals. He's number 17 because of missed games early in the year, suspension. And then, a couple games here and there. The trade, slightly sore back. I expect him to play in most of his team's games down the stretch, so that 17 by totals will probably work its way back up to basically where I had him. And right now at 17, that was his ADP anyway. So he is at value by totals. He's ahead of it per game, and I expect him to finish higher than he is now. He's been pretty consistently on the rise this year. DeJounte Murray is almost right on his ADP, slightly behind where we had him ranked. That's the issue there. 27 is his per game ranking. 21 was his ADP. I thought his per game would be in the second round. He's early third right now. Totals, he's basically right on pace. He's been pretty durable. We had him at number 10 by totals. He might not quite get all the way to the turn. But he'll be a second rounder, and so that'll be fine. That one's basically a neutral. Even if the targets aren't met, he'll likely beat his ADP because he's in front of it right now anyway. And I mean, there's sort of no reason to think that much changes for him the rest of the way. Sorry, that was DeJounte Murray. Oh, Kawhi Leonard. All right. I mean, this one is, as of right now, a miss. But at the same time, he's number 18 on a per-game basis on the season. And over the last 2 months, he's number 6 per game. And number 8 by totals. So, don't write it off yet. We have 30% of the season left. Most teams have around 25 games to go. And with the way Kawhi's been playing, he might get to that 8 rank that we had him on a per-game basis. He actually might get there, which I know seems almost insane given how awful the beginning of the year was. But Kawhi's, again, 18 per game and just been crushing for 2 months. If he does that for another 2 months, which is close to what we have left in the season, just a little bit less than that, he's a first-rounder per game. By totals, it's going to be almost impossible for him to get to the 17 mark that we were hoping for there. But, we've laughed about the Kawhi Leonard totals situation a few times this year and how fast he's moved up the board. He's up to number 70 by totals. Remember when he was at like 300? Over the last 2 weeks, I think he's gone from like 120 to 70. If he does the same thing he's done for those 2 weeks for another, probably jumps up to 50. Another 2 weeks, 30-something. Last 2 weeks of the season, last 3 weeks of the season, he really could get into the 20s by totals He's going to beat his ADP on a per game basis. So even right now, and I know that all the missed games have been a real pain in the butt, but if you're hunting per game upside, he's actually beating it now and just crushing it over the last 2 months. But we need it to continue. So Kawhi is still kind of a jury's out one, which is kind of amazing because, 6 weeks ago we had looked at Kawhi, we would have said for sure this one is a huge miss, and he's real damn close to being a win per game, even if the totals don't come all the way around. Freddie VanVleet, there he is at number 18 by totals on the year. He's beating my totals rank of him, which was already a net positive. He's been healthier than folks have given him credit for. He's played in 50 games so far this year. Per game, he's number 21. Where was my ranking? I had his per game at 20, so got that one pretty much right on the nose. Beating his ADP in both, that one's a win so far. Jimmy Butler, his ADP was 30.1. I had his per game at 17 and his totals rank at 23. I'm sorry, Jimmy, I undersold you. His per game right now is 12. And even though he, like always, is missing basketball games, his totals rank is 23, which is, guess what? The exact number I had. So, got that one. I owe Nikola Vucevic an apology because I had his per game at 27 and his totals at 20, and he has smashed both of those. His totals rank right now is 5. Top 5 by totals. 22 per game, but he's been incredibly durable so far this year. His per game, he beat my mark by 5 to this point, but he's been obliterating his ADP. And folks, you can see on the screen on YouTube, he was one of our bold names. So he was the second target behind Kevin Durant, who was crushing. Vooch continues to do so. Huge win for the old man squad there. Love it. Again, if you're looking back at the names so far, KD, due to injury, is the miss in the top chunk to this point. DeJounte Murray, a tiny bit under our target, but he's still beating his ADP. LeBron, slightly behind his ADP. Dame is ahead. Kyrie's basically right on it. Kawhi, depends on which direction you look at. Freddie's beating it. Jimmy's beating it. Vooch is crushing it. Chris Paul. I don't know what's going on with his shot right now. CP3 is at 36 per game, which is his ADP. So at least, even though we were hoping for more, at least he's at his ADP per game right now, even if he's not there by totals. He's been more banged up this year than we wanted to. The good news, though, is that one thing we have to look at when we're checking these things out is that since Chris Paul came back from his last hip injury, he's number 19 on a per-game basis, which is where we wanted him to be. I thought his per-game rank this year would be 21, and his totals rank would be 16. He's not gonna get to 16 by totals. His per-game rank could still get to 21. And if that's the case, then you take it because he could actually still beat his ADP of 36 if he stays healthy the rest of the way. So I'm not going to write this one off yet. I'm going to call Chris Paul still undetermined at this point. And to me, the only guy that has no shot of getting where we wanted them to be or beating his ADP would be Kevin Durant because of this big injury. And because you had to spend a first rounder on a guy who ended up with a big injury. That's the problem. These other guys have been hurt, but they were drafted second, third round or whatever, so they can still get there because of per game potential. Like Jimmy Butler, drafted at 30, but he's been so good per game that even with all the missed stuff, he's still beating his ADP in both metrics. Drew Holiday. This one's traditionally a kind of a stroll of a pick. He's number 38 on a per game basis so far this year. He's played in 47 ball games, so by totals, he's kind of right around that same mark. Let's see if we can find him by totals. Actually, get this number right. Where are you, Mr. Holiday? 51 by totals. I mean, this is a team that is generally being careful with their guys. So for Drew, he's just in front of his ADP per game, and he's just behind it by totals. That's neither a hit nor a miss. Neutral. Kristaps Porzingis smashing. He was our third huge target on the... Well, Chris Paul, I guess, was the third huge target. Kristaps Porzingis was our, the 4th round target in every draft. I ended up with Kristaps almost everywhere. And honestly, that's probably why a lot of my teams are doing really well. In addition to some guys we'll talk about kind of towards the end of the old man squad. Porzingis has been amazing. His ADP was 47. His totals rank right now is 13. Never in my wildest dreams did I think he'd be this healthy for this long. Because I had him at 19 per game, and I had him in the 30s by totals. My per game mark was pretty close. He's number 16 right now, but he's been healthier than expected, and that's just a huge win. Terry Rozier was the next name on the board, and, he's another guy where the jury is still out because Rozier's been on a furious run after the unbelievably slow start. I actually don't even know where he is right now. He's all the way up to number 76 on a per-game basis. I know you're thinking, ooh, that's a far cry from where we need him to get to. 48 was the ADP. I thought he'd be around 30 per game. He's probably not going to get to 30. 24 by totals. By totals, by the way, Rozier is also in the 70s. Believe it or not, this one is still, as of yet, undetermined. Because instead of looking at the full season, we should look at the last 2 months. Over that stretch, Terry is number 37 by totals. That's with a couple of ball games missed, but not many. And 44 per game. And over the last 1 month, Rozier is number 23 per game. I think because of the last games he missed here right at the tail end. No, actually, he's number 15 by totals. So if we continue to get that iteration of Scary Terry, he could very easily get there. At least, if he keeps playing like this, he will definitely beat his ADP of 48. He'll push past that. Will he get to the higher marks that I set for him? I don't know. So the question is, can he keep going like this and be a small win, even if he's not the size win that we were hoping for? Undetermined. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, ADP of 49.1 when I put the old man squad list together on Yahoo. I vastly undersold how good he would be this year. But at least I'm pleased that he's on the list because I honestly forgot he was on the list. He wasn't one of the big targets, so I don't want to try to take more credit than I deserve here. But look, he is actually on the list. And, I missed technically on how good he would be, but at least I said this is a guy who's going to beat his ADP by a round. And hopefully some of you bumbled into him because of the old man squad, maybe. Desmond Bane, also not one of our prime targets, but someone that we thought almost for sure would beat his marks on a per-game basis. Unfortunately, he did miss a ton of time with injury. Per game, he's at number 34, which is really close to where I had him at 31 per game. Unfortunately, he's only played in 35 ball games. So this is someone, Bane might be a guy who beats his mark per game, but loses by totals, which I think makes him a net neutral. You win one, you lose the other. I don't know how to grade that one more fairly. So that would be a 0. These should all be graded as +1 or -1 just for the sake of argument, even though some should be bigger than others. And also, again, we kind of have to look towards the end of the year. But if we said KD was a -1, Dame is a plus, LeBron is a 0, Kyrie's a plus, DeJounte's a 0, Kawhi, if you want to go -1, that's fine. I still think he probably gets back towards 0 by the end. Freddie VanVleet +1, Butler +1, Vooch is more like a +2. Chris Paul -1, Drew Holiday 0, Porzingis probably a +2, Rozier 0. Shai, obviously, if you have him, he's a +2, but based on my numbers, maybe it should be more like a +1. I lost track of where I was going with that. Mikal Bridges is the next name on the board. He was a prime target with an ADP of 59, and he's just annihilating that in every metric at this point. Bridges, on the full season, is 35 per game, and I believe he's 12 by totals. Yeah. And life is only going to get better as he continues to get to do more stuff. So he's beating his per game mark, even the mark that I set. I thought he was going to be 49 per game and 18 by totals. I thought the 18 by totals mark was really aggressive, and he's beating it. I don't know if anybody had him. Maybe Brewski. Brew was probably the only person who had Bridges higher than I did. I think he had him higher than 18. I don't know anybody that had him higher than the two of us, though. And he is obliterating. And here's the big oopsies. Say what you want about some of the other oopsies so far. Like KD's oopsies is Jimmy Butler fell into his leg. Chris Paul, you could argue, like, okay, he's old, so eventually he was going to miss some ball games. And by the way, Kawhi Leonard, there should be a caveat on this board. He was never a head-to-head pick. He was a roto-only pick. So you're basically looking at, can I rack up a bunch of per-game upside plays? But Keldon Johnson is truly the first bad handicap on the board here. And he was a target. So I got to wear this one in every sense of the word. Keldon is number 151 by averages right now on a tanking team. So he hasn't even been that durable. 52 games is fine, but like he needed to be up near 60 if he wanted to really push up the board. Big miss. Ouchies. Ouchies, I say. Keldon Johnson, that one hurt a little bit. That's a miss. But you know what? We're entitled to one big miss after a lot of really big hits to that point. Jakob Poeltl, he's number 90 by totals right now. I thought he would be at 60. I still think he can actually get there. Spurs, obviously, giving guys rest. They've throttled him down. They did the bubble wrap thing with Poeltl. He's 85 per game. But, I mean, we saw his last game in Toronto. He's ready to explode. I don't think we can call this one a hit or a miss yet. And I still actually think by the end of the year, 6-7 weeks from now, I think this will be a hit. Jamal Murray at 80.7 ADP. I'm losing track of how long we're going on this thing. I think we still got some more time. Jamal was, again, someone you wanted to target more on the roto side because you knew there'd be a bunch of missed ball games. He's number 59 by per game right now, which, hey, look at what old Dano had on his board. 57 was where I had him per game. Got that handicap pretty much right on the nose. By totals, I had Jamal on my board at 74. He's at 79 right now. He's pretty much doing exactly what we thought he would do at the pace, games played pace that we thought he would do it. So that's something. Devin Vassell at 81.6 was the next one. Unfortunately, he's been taking a bunch of time off. I think perhaps underestimated how tanky the Spurs would go. Per game wise, this one we pretty much got. He's 53 per game. We had him at 63 per game. But by totals, he's nowhere close. So I think you probably have to call this one a miss, even if the handicap was generally right. But, dude's missed 2 months of basketball, and you're not going to win with a guy who misses 2 months of basketball. I suppose the fortunate part is that at least, you're talking about a late 7th rounder right now, so it doesn't hurt you that much. And we got the stat profile right. We got the usage right. We got the per game production level pretty right. I just thought even with the tank, he would get into the mid 60s, and that ain't happening now. So that was Vassell. Al Horford at 84 is the next name on the list. He's number 79 per game. So he has indeed underperformed what I was hoping from him. I thought he would be closer to 50 this year, but for whatever reason, he just, the free throw number's been down. The field goal number's been a little bit lower. Honestly, it's the blocks and steals that I thought would be a tiny bit higher for him. And maybe 8.5, 9 shots instead of 7.5 shots per game. He's still technically a hit over his ADP. But I don't know. I just expected more. You can call this one -1/2 probably. Or 0. It's definitely not a hit. But I don't know. Can you really call it a miss? He's been fine. I just wanted more. I got greedy. Gary Trent Jr. Oh boy. After a couple months, he looked like it was going to be a disaster. Not anymore. He's number 48 per game. I had him at 56. And I had him at 52 by totals. Where the hell are you, Trent, by totals? Let's flip over here. 43. So he's actually beating the marks that I set for him. Probably should have invested more in Gary Trent Jr. because he's beating his number by 4 full rounds. That's a nice hit. That's a +1. Oops to Brandon Clark at 98. That's a -1. Thought for sure he would get to play a little bit more backup 4, backup 5, blend and mix, and JJJ I thought would be out longer, but honestly, that didn't even matter because they were rolling Santi Aldama there. That's a miss. We don't even need to dig into this one. Bad handicap. Brandon Clark, no. Lauri Markkanen, ladies and gentlemen, at 99, and he has smashed even my lofty expectations. I thought he would be in the 60s in both per game and totals on a team I thought would be tank, and they haven't even really tanked, and he's just blown away everything that we could have hoped. Huge win on Lauri Markkanen. And you might, so this is, Gordon Hayward is the next name on the list, and he's a miss. But I'm not going to like give myself negative marks for misses outside of the top 110. Regardless, this is where you're hoping to get some big hits. And those of you on YouTube, you can already see some of the names coming up on this thing. We have gotten a few of them. But this is why when folks hear me talk about Gordon Hayward on the pod, and I've been so down on him, I want people to realize I'm down on my own selection. Okay? I'm not picking on somebody else's call on Gordon Hayward. That's the problem. Like, everybody listens to these shows and reads our tweets and whatever, and they think we're, like, taking shots at people. I'm taking a shot at myself, ladies and gentlemen. I had Gordon Hayward as someone I thought would be quietly overperforming, and he's just looked terrible. So that's why I moved on. I saw what I saw. I watched these Hornets games, and I was like, oh, my God, this dude looks like slow and fat and out of shape, and he just doesn't have any lift. He's been better lately, so maybe he needed to play his way into a season 2-3 months later, but good Lord. He's probably not getting to 77 on a per-game rank. DeAnthony Melton, that's a hit. I don't care what anybody says about like the inconsistencies and the ups and downs. DeAnthony Melton is a hit. DeAnthony Melton is number 41 by totals on the year. And you don't get that high by just plodding along. By the way, I had him at 85 per game and 67 by totals on my board. I know he's trending the wrong way, but he would pretty much have to completely disappear to not beat his ADP of 115. He's 58, by the way, on a per game basis and 40s by totals. He's a hit, and he's going to be a hit even if he's not that great down the stretch. Because as we saw, even if he disappears for 1 or 2 ball games, he does still tend to bounce back in a couple others. He'll run a bit hot and cold. He'll probably be more like a top 115 guy the rest of the way. But guess what? He's done so much to this point, that won't bring him all the way back down. That's a hit. Jalen Smith, however, is not. Jalen Smith is the next name on the board at 119. And Rick Carlisle, we have Isaiah Jackson, 2 players later. Rick Carlisle has completely obliterated everything we thought the Pacers were going to do this year. I feel somewhat vindicated by the fact that every single analyst on planet Earth all liked Isaiah Jackson and most liked Jalen Smith. Not all, but most, because his stat set wasn't as good as Jackson's. And neither one of them have panned out. So the hell with both. But luckily, in between those 2 guys on our board, we have Brook Lopez, who, again, like, I thought that my 90-ish totals rank was actually kind of bullish on Brolo. And nope. Nope. He's a 29 per game, and he's played in 57 of the Bucks basketball games. He's 16 by totals. He was at least a target guy, so that's good. That's a big hit. Cam Johnson at 128 is an interesting one. He's not going to get anywhere near the totals rank that I set for him of 66. His per game rank of 82, to me, is very much in play. Where the hell is he at right now? He's at 77. So he's actually already beating. He's only played in 20 games this year. So by totals, he's going to be a mess. Per game, this will be a hit. Because, drafted at 128. Probably got dropped in a lot of leagues when he was out forever. So, I can't give myself credit on Cam Johnson. If a guy misses 3 months in the middle of the year, he's a miss. But he's a worthwhile player, and the handicap, frankly, was good. Mike Conley, I had sort of a pre-post all-star thing going on our board here. I did the same thing with Kelly Olynyk. Those are actually the last 2 names on the old man squad board. So we're going to get through the whole thing today, and we'll push the other stuff to tomorrow. Mike Conley, I thought he would be 75 per game before the break. And then I have his totals outside the top 130, specifically because I thought that there was a risk of shutdown. Well, he's at 115 per game right now because he's shooting 40.5% from the field. But now he's with Minnesota, so there's no shutdown risk, which mitigates that side. His totals rank will probably be better than where I had him at, and his per game might be a little bit lower. But either way, that one's been generally a winner. And then Kelly Olynyk is number 97 on a per game basis. I had him at 94, so he's right on that marker. His totals I had him outside the top 130. He'll probably be better than that because he's likely about to go on about a 4 or 5 week run before Utah probably shuts up everybody down last 1 or 2 weeks of the regular season, maybe. Although if they keep competing, maybe they don't. Either way, I think both of those guys at the end are generally winners, especially now as it seems the shutdown risk is not quite so severe. Okay, that's the Dan Besbris Old Man Squad as they stand right now. I didn't do the pluses or minuses element of it. If you guys want to see all that through, you can. I don't know, whatever's fine. For the most part, though, it's been fun. Like, we've had a lot of really good Old Man Squad hits this year. And frankly, when people are like, who are the biggest winners in fantasy, they probably say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Kristaps Porzingis, Brook Lopez, Lauri Markkanen, and Nick Claxton. And we had all of those guys except Claxton on the big board. And a few of them were primo targets. Porzingis was a primo target. Markkanen was a primo target. Brook Lopez was a primo target. Shai was not. So again, I don't want to give myself too much credit on that one, but he was on the damn list. How many names was that? Like 30-something? So, I didn't put 150 players or 200 players or whatever it is here. I didn't do 70, 80, 100 players on this list. I put down our top 30 plus, and we got like 4 of the 5 biggest winners in fantasy sports so far this year. And Vooch, who people don't even talk about as a huge fantasy winner, but frankly, he should be on that board also. Vooch has been, maybe he's this, he's not as surprising as seeing like Markkanen up all the way near the top. Lauri Markkanen at number 6 when he was drafted near whatever it was, 80. What did I say the ADP was on Markkanen? 99, actually, at the time of that, writing down that list, where Vooch was in the 30s. But those guys are 5 and 6 by totals, respectively. Vooch at 5, Lauri at 6. Brolo at 16. Shai actually is number 1 by totals right now. He's just in front of Nikola Jokic, mostly because they each have taken a handful of rest games apiece. That's pretty amazing, by the way. I'd still rather have Jokic because the per-game jump he's had lately, and he's been sort of pushing farther up the board. There's been separation. It's, the Jokic car is passing the Shai car as opposed to the other way around. But the fact that Shai's number 1 by totals is pretty remarkable for a guard that doesn't shoot the three-pointer, mind you. But huge, huge positives in both percentages, and only 2.9 turnovers per ball game. 2.3 defensive stats, a lot to like. 30 points per game. 31 points per game, sorry. 2.7 defensive stats on Shai. I shorted him a point. It's at 31. So again, like, of all the huge movers, particularly on the total side, because you want your big movers to actually be in a lot of ball games, we've had 4 of the 5, and maybe even 5 of 6 if you throw Vooch in there. But we didn't have Claxton. So that's the one that I'm going to look back and go, man, what if we had Nick Claxton? Where the hell is he on the totals board? 26. So still really, really good. But slightly below those other guys. Still, he was a guy that got drafted outside the top 115 or whatever it was. So obviously a massive, massive winner. Tomorrow on the pod, there's the hell are we doing tomorrow? I said it earlier in the show. Now I can't remember. Tomorrow we're going to do, right, I remember, Thursday preview because we got games coming back. And also I want to do a demo run of long streaming just to basically show you how you would do it if you were going to do it right out of the All-Star break. I'm not going to do that every day until early March, but that'll give you all an indicator of how I look at a board and swing all the puzzle pieces around, make them fit just the right way. To my recorded listeners, please do hang out with us next time live on YouTube at youtube.com/sportsethos. To my live viewers, we'll be doing a Q&A session here after the show. I am Dan Besbris for Fantasy NBA. Today, a tip of the cap to the lovely Dan Besbris Old Man Squad. We will review it again at the end of the season and see if some of these direction ideas we talked about today actually did bear fruit. Where did they end up for real? And maybe we'll find a way to grade it out. I don't know. I feel like we could try that. I don't know if it would really matter. Like, you guys will see the names, you'll hear the names, whatever it is, and you'll know generally how we did. But that's where we're at with the Old Man Squad, and that's where we're at with this All-Star Break Wednesday show. Forgot what day it was for a second there. I'll see you guys over on social media at Dan Besbris over on K, and of course, sportsethos.com. Baseball season around the corner. Sports Ethos has the baseball draft guide dropping now. You can get that as part of the fantasy pass, which is only $5.99 a month. Joe Orico and his team have been doing work. People, go check that out at sportsethos.com. That's the baseball draft guide as part of the Sports Ethos fantasy pass included therein. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. We'll talk to all of you folks again mañana. All right, YouTubers. I'm weirded out by the fact that there were more people watching yesterday than today. I thought as we got closer to the season or as the game's coming back, it would tick up a little bit. But maybe people are just less excited about the Old Man Squad. Let's do some questions. Where do we leave off? There aren't that many more, which is good because I'm going to go get back to the rest of my day. 9Cat head-to-head. I was offered Larry Markkinen for Drew Holiday. Sure, why not? Why not? Although Drew's going to have a good little push here with no Giannis. So probably depends when your playoffs start. If they're really soon, maybe you stick with Drew. Then there's the fear, do they shut down Markkinen in Utah if they fall out of the playoff picture? I don't know, man. I feel like the shutdown for that team might be the last, week. So if you wiped out the silly season, if you guys don't go to the end of the year, then you're probably okay going the Lowry route. But if your playoffs are really soon, I think I might stick with Drew. Dan, what are your thoughts on Ja in a salary roto dynasty league? Ooh, boy. So I don't play those as a preface, but I will say that he probably won't be worth his value as a max guy. Simply because, and you said roto there, so I'm going to treat this like a roto discussion. Ja is number 81 per game this year. Still, all these lingering effects. It's driving me crazy. Now we're at day 22 since my first symptom of this cold. He's also only played in 48 ball games because Ja leaps into the stratosphere and gets hurt. And there's just if you're playing head-to-head and you're punting free throws, for instance, then great. Or if you're playing head-to-head and you're punting free throws and turnovers, awesome, because, everybody punts turnovers in head-to-head. But if you're punting both of those things, then Ja is number 27. Great. That's useful. And as a max guy, 27 is borderline. It's on the cusp. But roto, where you're generally trying to attack all the categories, he's not going to hit what he's getting paid. There's almost no way. Love that you're going live. Thanks, Dan. You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, it's fun. We got to build up our YouTube page. By the way, everybody, like and subscribe. Forgot to tell you guys here when we got into the questions part. Game blouses. I was offered John Morant and Ivica Zubac for my Desmond Bane and Mark Williams. Bane and Mark Williams wins this trade. Like we just talked about with Ja, he's 81. I mean, again, if you're in a particular punt build, then maybe you lean towards the jaw side. But if you're not punting both free throws and turnovers, then Bane and Mark Williams smash in this one. Smash. And frankly, not all that close. Because Zubats is probably about to lose 3 or 4 minutes to Mason Plumlee also. Head-to-head 9-cat, I am punting turnovers. Who would you rather have? Jalen Duren, Zach Collins, or Kelly Olynyk? So I think Collins and Olynyk actually end up with almost the same fantasy stat set the rest of the way, which is like a 90 range. Slightly better at assists than most centers. A little defensive stuff smattered. Some threes smattered. Jalen Duren, I'm a little bit worried about. I think he's going to play. Like, James Wiseman is not going to take all of his minutes, but he might take a couple. I think I'm going Olynyk here. But it's really, really close. And we're seeing a lot out of him lately. They moved various guards around. I know Utah just signed some guards off the scrap heap that might get a little bit of playing time there. But Olynyk is one of their better passers now with Conley gone. And to me, that just creates a new upside that wasn't there earlier in the year. Lester. More water here as my voice is starting to fade. Do you think Chris Middleton will be inside the top 50 rest of season? And who would you rather have? Franz, Wagner, or Jalen Williams? On the Middleton question, I think he'll be inside the top 65 to 70 the rest of the year. I don't know if he's going to quite hit 50 because they're still keeping the minutes checked. 25, 26 here a little bit longer. But he'll be pretty close. I mean, and he's been so effective in his slightly shorter minutes lately that maybe that gets him there anyway. I think he's just outside the top 50. And between Franz and Jalen Williams, Franz Wagner's been a weird one. He's kind of quietly had a okay but not terrific season. He's outside the top 100 overall on the year. Last 2 months, he's right in that same range. I think I lean ever so slightly to Jalen Williams, mostly because he's a steals behemoth. And with Wagner, they need to put the ball in his hands more, but guys just keep coming back for that team, so it's not happening. Are we adding Miles Bridges? So he says he might be back by March. I'm skeptical that there isn't any additional suspension coming on top of it. No is my answer. I'm not. So here's the thing. I don't want him on my fantasy team anyway. Forget what he might be able to do on a basketball court. If I'm going to win, I kind of want to just win without him. I get it. I know it was cutthroat. We all want to win. If there's thousands of dollars on the line, then I understand. I don't know if we actually see him play this season. I'm not sure I believe it yet. And even if we do, he's been away forever. So do we really think that in the 3 weeks or whatever that he can get ramped up, is that going to be enough? He's a guy, God, it pains me to even talk about it like this. But if you're really going to look at it strictly fantasy and you don't have the pit in your stomach by doing it, because I do, and I'm not adding him. But if you're in a keeper league where you could get him at a cheap price and hold him on to next year, that's probably the move. Gross. Any waiver wire pickups for Roto? Just some ideas. I don't know, man. Games haven't happened in a week. Whatever I said last week, still now. What do you think of DeRozan rest of season? Well, they didn't trade him. Chicago had a great opportunity to blow things up and go get some pieces. DeMar's number 31 on the year. I believe he'll be back soon. I'm not super worried about it, even if he's not back out of the break. Bulls still are convincing themselves they want to make a run at it. So I see no reason why DeMar wouldn't just continue to roll along between 25 and 35 or 40. No change. That's my official answer on DeMar. No delta. How about Pat Bev? How about that Pat Bev? Sounds like the Bulls want him to start. He's going to have plenty of competition for those guard minutes. Guys like Iota Sumo, Alex Caruso, Kobe White, etc. Pat Bev's body can't really handle 30-plus minutes anymore. We know what happens when he goes that hard for that long. He misses games within a couple weeks due to a hip or a knee or a back or something like that. So the Bulls are going to have a choice to make, which is, do they run him into the ground and accept the fact that he's not going to be able to play every ball game? Or do they do kind of what the Lakers did, keep him in the 26-ish minute range? He stayed healthier because of it, but he was not inside the top 100. So that's what we don't know. He actually does help the Bulls because he's a guy that can kind of bring an energy to a listless team, and Chicago's been kind of listless lately. But I'm not adding him in 12-teamers. I don't think he hits standard league value. I think he maybe gets close in 14. He's probably a 16-teamer, almost for sure. But to me, he's floating around the 14-team range, 14, 16, and not 12ers. And that is, and you guys know I do love the weird stats from Pat Bev, the out of position stuff, which tells you how kind of low I am on where he finishes up this year. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the Old Man Squad Redux. Tomorrow, again, we'll do a streaming demo, and we will preview the return of basketball. We made it through the All-Star break, everybody. Have a great Wednesday. Until the morrow.